The entire Gates family could hear my thoughts. On the first day they brought me to their estate, they wired their adopted son an allowance of $30,000. Me? 200. I raised an eyebrow, silently fuming. 200? I make more than that just working on the assembly line. They stood there, faces full of expectation, probably waiting for me to beg or grovel. I let them hear my next thought anyway. So, the Gates dynasty gives their son 30,000 and me a measly 200? That barely covers a square foot of thermal shielding. Why bother fighting over this inheritance? I've got 30 rockets to finish this year. Aliens are going to fend for themselves. The moment my biological parents and I stepped into the mansion, a boy dropped his knees in front of me. Startled, I jumped back. Tears streamed down his face as he crawled forward. It's all my fault, Leo. I stole the life that should have been yours. Please forgive me. If you can't, I'll leave the Gates family and go back to the slums where I belong. His over-the-top performance did nothing to prepare me for the chaos around him. My wealthy parents and 3 sisters rushed to his side. My mother helped him up, her voice sharp. Leo, that's enough. How could you treat your brother that way? My father's eyes blazed with disapproval. Victoria, my eldest sister, scoffed. Typical. Dragged out of the middle of nowhere. All he knows is herding cattle and screwing bolts on an assembly line. No wonder he resorts to cheap tricks. I barely noticed. I was too busy taking in the mansion itself. The Gates family is top tier in advanced materials. They weren't skimping on their home. They froze as they studied me, expressions shifting from anger to confusion. Smart move taking leave to meet them. With me inside the family, the plant won't have to worry about material shortages anymore. My father's frown deepened. Victoria snorted, annoyed. My second sister, Serafina, gave me a sharp, suspicious glance. Isabel, my youngest sister, glared and warned, "We only have one brother, Ray. Don't even think about competing for affection or the company." Patronizingly, my father addressed me. Leo, adjusting from factory life to a family like ours must be challenging. A few taps on his phone later, a robotic voice blared from my ancient flip phone. $200 received. Here's something to start with, he said. Once you settle in, I'll send more. Then he turned to Ray, voice full of warmth. Ray, you're one of us. Always. I'm increasing your allowance to 30,000 immediately. Consider it compensation. Ray's tears vanished, replaced by a triumphant smile, though he still had to put on a show. No, Leo deserves it more. He's had such a hard life, factory, countryside, the works. I frowned. 30,000? For their son? The Gates family can't be that wealthy. Ray blinked, confused. Victoria laughed coldly. 30,000? Forget it. You probably haven't even seen 10,000 in your life. Do you understand money at all? I shrugged inwardly. Big deal. 30,000 isn't enough to cover a square meter of thermal shielding. Our weekly workshop budget is higher than that. Their family business may be in advanced materials, but they're a little short on cash. Maybe Dad can broker a partnership between our plant and the Gates company. After a long, awkward silence, the family's faces were unreadable. My father finalized Ray's transfer and stormed out, furious. After dinner, my mother led me to a small suite beside the first-floor dining room. Leo, she said coolly, the upstairs bedrooms aren't ready. You'll stay here for now. Ray stood nearby, faking concern. Mom, this is the maid's room. Are you sure it's okay for Leo? Why don't I give him my room? Before I could protest, my mother cut him off. Absolutely not. This cramped space is for the lower class. I would never let you stay there. I couldn't help laughing. The maid's room is too lowly for the adopted son, but fine for their real son. My mother shot me a glare, embarrassed. Leo grew up in the country. Dirt floors, no running water, cramped factory dorms. This is a huge step up for him. Ray, playing the tragic hero, smiled magnanimously. It's okay, Mom. The room was always meant for him anyway. I've been an intruder here for 20 years. It's time to return what's rightfully his. They carried on, tears and dramatic sobs, clinging to each other as I leaned against the doorframe, shaking my head. I looked around the lower class room I was assigned. The soundproofing was surprisingly good. My mother and Ray could wail all they wanted, and I couldn't hear a thing from my father. It was almost like he'd vanished. The room was tiny. There was no way I could set up any of my plant equipment here. Looks like I'll have to go back if I want to work overtime. What a pain. My mother's crying abruptly stopped. I thought about work and felt that familiar knot of anxiety. I'd used my vacation days to be here, but the backlog at the plant was massive. If I didn't put in overtime all week, I'd never hit my KPI for the year. She stared at me silently, tears drying on her cheeks, her expression heavy with something like regret. The news that the Gates had rediscovered their long-lost son spread fast among the city's elite. Everyone was watching me and Ray, anticipating the drama of the real heir clashing with the imposter. To show equality between the sons, my father decided to throw a party in my honor. The catch? Nobody bothered to tell me. That evening, after an exhausting day at the plant, I returned to find the mansion packed with the city's glamorous high society. Every head turned the moment I walked in, expressions ranging from shock to pity to thinly veiled disdain. Ray's voice boomed. "Leo, why on earth are you dressed like that for a party?" I glanced at him. He looked perfect, every hair in place, a bespoke suit that made him look like the undisputed star of the evening. He approached me, faux concern dripping from his tone. "You didn't wear a suit? Didn't you like what Mom and Dad picked out?" "If you want, you can borrow one of mine," I said casually. His words were kind in appearance, but his eyes sparkled with malicious delight. Guests began whispering immediately. "So that's the real heir? He looks completely out of place. The Gates throw a party for him, and he shows up like that? Is he trying to embarrass them?" My sister Isabel laughed with a group of guests, pretending not to know me. Serafina stood a short distance away, silently observing. Victoria followed my parents as they approached, her expression stormy. "Leo, what are you wearing?" my mother hissed. "This is an important event." I looked down. My plan-issued shirt and cargo pants were comfortable and durable. Nothing wrong there. I was exhausted. I hadn't spent the entire day working at the factory just to join their little social drama. Aliens were practically at our doorstep, and they were still stuck in their petty family quarrels. I should have stayed at the plant and run a few more simulations. My father forced a smile. "This is Leo. We just brought him back from the country. He's a bit unpolished. Please forgive him." Ray jumped in with exaggerated concern. "It's his first time at a party like this. He doesn't know any better. Please don't judge him." Of course, this only fueled the whispers and sneers. I heard his adoptive parents were shepherds. No wonder he doesn't fit in. And he's just some factory worker with no education. Compared to him, Ray really does look like the heir. My parents' faces darkened with each comment. Ray feigned worry, then quickly shifted the topic. "By the way, Leo, I hear you work at a big plant. Which one? I'm sure some of our friends are curious. Maybe even your boss is here tonight." More snickers rippled through the crowd. "He calls an electronics assembly line a big plant. Does he even know what a corporation is? He's from the countryside. What else do you expect? My company would never hire someone without a high school diploma. It would ruin our reputation." The whispers and laughter deepened the gloom on my parents' faces. But Ray's antics gave me an idea. The Gates may be strapped for cash, but they're well connected. If I could recruit leaders in satellite communications, remote sensing, and energy to partner with our plant, our production capacity, and my KPI would skyrocket. I scanned the room, my resolve hardening. It was time to showcase my work. Victoria stormed over. "Leo, stop embarrassing yourself. Go change." She grabbed my arm and practically dragged me to the maid's room. "Stay here. Don't do anything else to disgrace this family. I'm planning a political career." "Scandals aren't ideal," I muttered. "If you ruin my vetting process, you'll regret it. Mom and Dad won't be the only ones angry." I couldn't help thinking, she's been chasing political office for 7 years. At this rate, a tortoise could have beaten her. Surely the Gates could have hired a tutor by now. Victoria's face flamed through every shade of red. "You're impossible. Fine, stay here and think about what you've done. You're not welcome at the party anyway." She stormed off and locked the door. I finally had quiet enough to review my test data. But Ray wasn't finished. A few minutes later, I heard the lock click. He entered, cheerful as ever. "Leo, still not changed? The guests are waiting." His cunning was obvious. He walked to my desk and leaned over my data sheets. I covered them instinctively. These were classified documents. Even a tiny leak could be catastrophic. "What's all this?" he asked, reaching. "Are you hiding something you don't want people to see?" I shot back. Ray glanced at the door, eyes hardening. The friendly act vanished. He lunged for the papers. I slammed my hands down, but he seized them, crumpling the sheets. My heart sank. "You idiot," I thought. I reacted without thinking. I kicked out, striking him. To my surprise, he let go, flipping backward from the force, a strange, triumphant smirk on his face. Ray. My mother's shriek confirmed his plan had worked. Victoria, my parents, and the guests arrived just in time to see him go flying. Leo, what are you doing? Victoria screamed. I looked up at Victoria as she scolded me, noting the faint, triumphant smirk tugging at her lips. My father's eyes burned with disappointment, while my mother hurried to Ray's side, cradling him like a wounded child. It's my fault, Mom, Ray sobbed, leaning against her. I shouldn't have tried to look at Leo's things. Don't blame him. The guests, who had followed, now stared at me with thinly veiled disgust. See? A brute from the countryside. Not even a week back with the Gates, and he's already violent. Raised in poverty for years, no wonder he's twisted. I bet he's jealous of Ray and wants him out of the family. Ray kept the theatrics going. Mom, he's angry because I stole his life. If he doesn't want me here, I'll leave. My mother's glare could have frozen a river. Leo, you've gone too far this time. Apologize to Ray immediately. I couldn't help the thought crossing my mind. Victoria locks me in a room, and Ray sneaks in with a key to steal my documents. These two could probably win acting Oscars. If Ray tried acting professionally, Isabel might finally have competition. Isabel choked mid-laugh. My mother's furious expression faltered, and my father's gaze shifted to Victoria, who nervously wiped sweat from her forehead. Ray, oblivious, stayed in character. I just wanted to make sure he wasn't doing anything to harm the Gates. I saw those papers on his desk, some alloy materials and other data I didn't understand. I only peeked, and he reacted violently. He never even finished high school. How could he understand this? And since our family company develops advanced materials, I was just concerned. He might as well have accused me of corporate espionage. My father's frown deepened. He approached and extended a hand. Give me those documents. I tightened my grip. He lunged, but I was ready. Like father, like son, a family of thieves. Victoria, pale-faced, intervened. What are these documents? You're not leaving without an explanation. I stayed silent for a moment. Not an option. I had to be at the plant early tomorrow, or my KPI would tank. I pulled Ray away from my mother, holding up a page. Read this. Reluctantly, he stammered through it in front of the room. Measurement of maximum thermal resistance for rocket surface materials under varying alloy compositions and orbital trajectory simulations for a near-Earth comet landing under different acceleration vectors. I snatched the sheet back immediately. He hadn't even processed it. The room went quiet. Rockets? Comets? A voice hesitantly asked, Mr. Gates. Leo, where do you work exactly? I tilted the documents to reveal the logo on my shirt pocket. Project Skyguard? Someone gasped. That's the top aerospace program in the nation. You work there? I was surprised. It was a serious-looking middle-aged man. Another scoffed. That can't be right. We work with multiple airlines and haven't heard of them. The man rolled his eyes. Aerospace isn't aviation. Project Skyguard is the country's premier space manufacturing program. They produce launch vehicles, state-of-the-art rockets. You think airplanes are the same thing? I calmly smoothed the crumpled sheets. Of course you haven't heard of us. We're state-owned, top secret, working on national defense against alien threats. I placed the documents back in their folder and glanced at my family. My mother stared blankly, my father's jaw hung open, and my sisters looked at me as if I were from another planet. Ray, oblivious, still wore his smug expression. With his intelligence, Ray probably wouldn't remember anything from the papers. But just in case, I had a backup plan. My mother started to speak, but my father silenced her. Ray tugged nervously on her sleeve, clueless why everyone was staring. Leo, Ray was wrong, but... She began, pained. If the Gates tried to protect him, I could still have the whole family face consequences, and their assets liquidated to fund my project. When the police arrived, Ray was still preening. Officers, that's him. He stole our company's secrets. Instead, handcuffs clicked on his wrist. He froze, pointing at me, disbelief etched across his face. You've got the wrong person. He's the spy. Why me? Mom, Dad, sisters. Say something, he pleaded, but the Gates were silent, playing their parts to perfection. The officer scoffed. Corporate spy? Come with us, and explain why you attempted to leak state secrets. Click. The other handcuff snapped shut. Ray was dragged away, stunned. The room fell silent. I packed my bag quietly. With Ray out of the way, the family would likely kick me out. No matter, I'd head back to the plant dorms and get a good night's sleep before another day of work. Just as I left, my flip phone buzzed. $200,000 received. My father's voice called out, tinged with guilt. Leo, we misunderstood, take this, and the rest of his sentence trailed off. Even a fool could see the bribe attempt. I pocketed the money. Tomorrow, I'll have an unlimited credit card issued for you, he added awkwardly. Thanks, Dad, I said, taking it before he could change his mind. The party ended in an odd, tense silence. After Ray's arrest, the whole family and I were summoned for questioning. Fortunately for them, Ray didn't have a photographic memory. Interrogators grilled him for 3 days at the detention center, and when it became clear he couldn't even recall the single line he'd read aloud, the investigators relaxed. Then, under pressure, Ray cracked and spilled the truth, a dramatic twist nobody expected. Victoria had orchestrated the whole thing. She'd been terrified that my presence would tarnish her political ambitions. Her plan was neat and cruel. She told Ray to provoke a fight. She locked me in the maid's room, gave Ray the key, and timed the performance so all the influential guests would serve as witnesses. The result was immediate and devastating, the story of the Gates family's farce spreading like wildfire through elite circles. The family threw money at damage control, but the scandal stuck, and Victoria's political dreams were permanently derailed. When the dust settled, Ray was released, but not unpunished. For slandering me and humiliating the family, my father cut off his $30,000 allowance. My standing in the household changed overnight. My mother moved me into the best bedroom, and my father assigned me a driver to get to and from work. I didn't argue. This meant shorter commutes and extra hours to run more simulations. Less than 2 months remained in the year, and every extra hour counted if we were going to launch a functioning defense satellite on schedule. For once, the house was quiet, and Ray kept his distance. After a few days, my father and Serafina approached me carefully. Leo, your program needs advanced materials, right? Our company has breakthroughs in that area, Serafina suggested. She proposed a family partnership, and while I'd thought of it before, I hesitated. 5 years earlier, the company had flamed out publicly for cutting corners. Faulty materials in a rocket meant catastrophe. Serafina's response was plain and firm. She vouched for the company, promising every product passed strict international inspections. She even pledged, audaciously, to hand over all her shares if anything failed an audit. My father admitted there had been a mole years ago, but insisted Serafina had overhauled operations since then, transforming the company. Serafina clearly knew her stuff. I agreed to pursue it. My director and colleagues raised no objections, the satellite project being my responsibility. I arranged an independent expert inspection, and Serafina was right. Their materials met or exceeded the standards. Contracts and non-disclosures were signed smoothly, and with Gates Industries as a supplier, a major materials hurdle vanished. Time rushed by. We were a week away from launch. I felt confident, maybe too confident. Then the sabotage came. A scathing online expose trended instantly, accusing an aerospace researcher, Mr. L, of embezzling hundreds of millions through nepotism. The video blurred my eyes and used a distorted voice, alleging I'd steered contracts to my family's company and that faulty parts had been sold to the state. The narrator warned grimly about what a failed rocket could mean. Comments erupted, furious and relentless. People called for severe punishment, questioned how someone without a high school diploma could get such a job, accused me of buying my way in, demanded government action. My family's PR machine scrambled and failed. Isabel's social feed drowned in insults, and gloom fell over the mansion. I was furious and worried. Someone had both access to sensitive information and motive to torpedo our launch. If I eliminated the impossible, the remaining suspect had to be a family member. Victoria and Ray were obvious candidates. Victoria had the media know-how, Ray had the spite. My parents and Serafina protested, insisting the scandal harmed them the most, but their pleas sounded hollow to me. I stood, steady, and said simply, I'm going to find our eldest sister. No one stopped me. Since her political ambitions were crushed, Victoria had dropped all pretense. I found her lounging in a private club, surrounded by admirers, bragging loudly to anyone who would listen. So what if he builds rockets? Overnight, he's become the enemy, she sneered. That curse won't break. 20 years gone, and he still crawls back into the spotlight. If I could have gotten rid of him then, I can do it now. Jealousy dripped from her words. I built rockets. She couldn't. Before I could knock, her head snapped toward me, rage flickering across her features. But she masked it with practiced poise, twisting it into a mock smile. What are you doing here? Begging me to save your reputation? I didn't answer immediately. You orchestrated the story. Ray was her pawn. She laughed. So what? That story isn't going anywhere while I'm involved. I remained calm. Serafina and I have an agreement. If her products ever fail quality inspection, she will hand over her shares to me unconditionally. And if you want that story removed and a public clarification issued, I'll transfer to you all the shares I receive, I added, producing 2 signed copies of a shared transfer agreement. Victoria's eyes widened. She hadn't expected this. Controlling Serafina's shares meant controlling the company entirely. She read carefully, then softened her tone, feigning warmth. Leo, we're family. There's no need for such formality. If you had behaved from the start, none of this would have happened. You'll always be my brother as long as you know your place. She reached out to pat my head. I slapped her hand away sharply. Her shock was immediate. Her face darkened with rage. A huge sigh of relief escaped me. She almost touched my crown. Victoria forced a smile, signed the agreement, and I walked out without another word. As soon as I stepped outside, I called the police. The agreement itself was straightforward. It stated that I would transfer all shares I received to Victoria. The hidden condition was that Victoria, as instigator, and Ray, as the supposed whistleblower, had to immediately cease their smear campaign and remove all content online. By signing, Victoria admitted their guilt. I submitted the audio recording of our conversation and the signed agreement as evidence. When the police arrived, Victoria's fury boiled over. You tricked me. You never meant to give me those shares. I shook my head in disgust. Are we really related? Her stupidity was breathtaking. The products Serafina supplied were flawless. She didn't need to transfer anything, and I didn't own a single share, so there was nothing to give her anyway. Days later, the official investigation confirmed it. The materials supplied by the gates passed every inspection and exceeded standard requirements. Experts who had assisted with the initial audit came forward to vouch for me and the company. I released my academic credentials and theses publicly, and the online rumors collapsed. For spreading false information and inciting public panic, Victoria and Ray were each sentenced to a year in prison. The scandal barred the entire Gates family from holding public office. Within days, my KPI was achieved. The rocket carrying the planetary defense satellite system launched successfully, the satellites forming a 40,000-kilometer network to monitor and protect Earth from extraterrestrial threats. A month later, the system deflected a comet that had been on a collision course with Earth. The nation celebrated. I was promoted to workshop director, overseeing all planetary defense research. The estimated time until the alien spacecraft's arrival is now less than 10 years. Deep space exploration continues, and my team and I remain relentless in our work.